أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قال دخل علي برسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا قلت له أعوذك بالله يا بدأ من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وسمرة فوادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله يتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد زنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فوادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك واقع تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله تأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام ويا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء اللهم فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم هو ما ولدك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله لا رسول الله يتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء اللهم صل على ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله تأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا أبتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء ولما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله بطرف الكساء وهما بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم ودوا لمن آذاهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فجل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرض مدهية ولا قمر منيرا ولا شمس مضية ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء فقال لمن جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبائلها وبنوها اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد قال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرأك السلام يخصك بالتحية والإكرام يقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرض مدهية ولا قمر منيرا ولا شمس مضية ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا مين وحلا إنه نعم قد أذنت لك فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوس هذا تحت الكساء ابن الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبر هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى يتفرقوا. فقال علي نزم الله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله ثاني يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبر هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيه مهموم إلا فرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وغزى الله حاجته. وقال علي عليه السلام زم الله فوزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. لا صل على
پر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں ہم غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں. نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں ہم غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں. تیری تربت لاڈلے تیرے چند ٹکڑے سند کے لائے ہیں. نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں ہم غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں. انما روز جس پہ پڑھتے تھے اب وہ دروازہ جل گیا. نانا انما پہ پڑھتے تھے اب وہ دروازہ جل گیا. نانا تیرے در پر دیا جلانے ہم اسی در کو بجھا کے آئے ہیں. نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں ہم غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں. داغ دروں کے کیسے دکھلاتی باپ ہو تم سے بیٹی کیا کہتی. داغ دروں کے کیسے دکھلاتی باپ ہو تم سے بیٹی کیا کہتی. جس کے ساکے تلے تھے ہم سارے نیل اس کے تلے چھپائے ہیں. نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں، ان مشکلوں سے قدم اٹھاتی ہے، دو قدم چل کے بیٹھ جاتی ہے، مشکلوں سے قدم اٹھاتی ہے، دو قدم چل کے بیٹھ جاتی ہے، بن سہارے وہ چل نہیں سکتی، زخم ایسے جگر پہ کھائے ہیں، نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں ہم، غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں، تیری تربت پہ لاڈلے ٹکڑے سند کے لائے ہیں، نانا تیرے حسنین ہیں ہم، غم مادر سنانے آئے ہیں۔ درود بر محمد محمد۔
بار دیگر نعرہ اللہم صل علی چشم نبی کے خواب کو کہتے ہیں سیدہ، چشم نبی کے خواب کو کہتے ہیں سیدہ، عصمت کے آفتاب کو کہتے ہیں سیدہ، قرآن کے جواب کو کہتے ہیں سیدہ، منہ بولتی کتاب کو کہتے ہیں سیدہ، یہ ذات یوں کتاب کی تفسیر بن گئی، لفظوں میں ڈھل کے آیا تطہیر بن گئی، چشم نبی کے خواب کو صلی علی محمد۔ سلام کے چند اشعار آپ کھیتیا سماعت ہیں، بار دیگر نعرہ سلام صلی علی محمد۔ مقصد کا محور فاطمہ آیۂ تطہیر کے مقصد کا محور یعنی شرح عظمت نور پیمبر فاطمہ آیۂ تطہیر کے ان سے پھیلا دین حق، ان سے بڑھی نسل رسول، ان سے پھیلا دین حق، ان سے بڑھی نسل ایک کوثر ہے علی اور ایک کوثر فاطمہ آیۂ تطہیر کے نام ہے تسبیح زہرا کا متسبیح خدا، نام ہے تسبیح زہرا کا متسبیح، ذکر تیرا ذکر حق اللہ اکبر فاطمہ آیۂ تطہیر کے تو کرے اپنے جنازے کے لیے شب کو پسند، تو کرے اپنے جنازے کے لیے شب کو پسند، اور تیری دکھ تر ہو بلوے میں کھلے سر فاطمہ آیۂ فاتحہ نظر شروع. دنیا سے آج رحلتے بنتے رسول ہے. دنیا سے آج رحلتے بنتے رسول ہے. دستے اجل میں عصمت کبریٰ کا پھول ہے. قبر نبی لرزتی ہے یسراب معلوم ہے. حسنین و مرتضیٰ سے وداعِ بطول ہے. حسنین و مرتضیٰ سے وداعِ بطول. پٹی سے لگ کے زینب و کلثوم روتی ہیں. اس کم سنی میں بچیاں بے ماں ہیں. اس کم سنی میں بچیاں بے ماں کی ہوتی ہیں. زینب کا حال یہ ہے کہ آنسو تو ہے رواں. کلثوم کو بھی دیتی ہے پیغام تسلیہ. فرما رہی ہے چھوٹی بہن سے کہ میری جان رہتی نہیں جہاں میں ہمیشہ. کسی کی ماں رہتی نہیں جہاں میں ہمیشہ. بے بستی ہم کو چھوڑ کے گریا چلی گئی. اللہ نے بلا لیا اماں چلی گئی. اللہ نے بلا لیا اماں چلی گئی. زینب کی بھولی باتوں پا مضطر تھے مرتضیٰ. آسمان بچیوں کو گلے سے لگا لیا. چپ کے کھڑے تھے لاش کی باری پا مجتبیٰ. اور سر رکھا تھا قدموں پہ ماں کے حسین کا. اور سر رکھا تھا قدموں پہ ماں کے حسین کا. سب رو رہے تھے دیکھ کے میت بطول کی. دنیا سے اٹھ رہی تھی نشانی رسول کی. دنیا سے اٹھ رہی تھی نشانی رسول کی. میت کے پاس بیٹھ کے
مرتضی بچوں سنبھالو دل کو کہ یہ سال کی ہے جا اب اہتمام کرنا ہے میاں کے غسل کا اسماء کے ساتھ صحن میں جاؤ پیدر فدا اسماء کے ساتھ صحن میں جاؤ پیدر فدا تعمیل ہو وصیت بنت رسول کی انجام دے ہم آخری خدمات بطول کی انجام دے ہم آخری خدمات بطول کی دنیا سے آج رحلتے
محمد وعلی محمد. مومنین اکرام، سورہ فاتح کی التماس ہے. مرحوم سید وسیع احمد نقوی، سید صغیر مہدی، سید علی اسنان نقوی، ام سلمہ، سید اختر حسین، سید مظفر عباس شازیہ امام اور حاضرین مجلس کے مرحومین کو شامل کرتے ہوئے ایک مرتبہ سورہ الحمد، 3 مرتبہ سورہ اخلاص پڑھ کے احسان فرمائیں. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. خوشنودی حضرت زہرا بآواز بلند صلوات.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المبارك الفاتحة. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على خيرة خلق الله أجمعين وهو رحمة الله للعالمين وابن القاسم المصطفى محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الميامين المهديين المعصومين المظلومين المقتولين ولعنة الله دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الرسول: يا ربي إن قومي اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Furqan says, the ayah says, and the messenger said that surely my community has abandoned this Quran, that they have shunned this Quran. We'll see in a bit how this relates to Sayyidah Zahra. What I'm going to relate to you today, as I mentioned yesterday, is we are going to go through some of the details regarding her death and her tragedy and her situation today. It's a Saturday, we have a little bit more time. So inshallah, we're going to try to cover as much as material as possible. And right off the bat, for somebody who may say, well, why does any of this matter? It matters because when we reaffirm our aqa'id and our aqidah and our belief in the Imams, in the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, it ultimately should make us better Muslims. It should make us people that are more committed to her cause, more spiritually attached to her. And there's two immediate benefits to this. Two immediate benefits. Benefit number one is it gives us this sense of courage. It gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a sense of resolve. That in all the difficulties that we face in our daily life, we can face them through remembering the difficulties faced by the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the awliya of Allah azza wa jalla. Number two, as the Prophet said, the one who knows her knows her. And the one who doesn't know her should know that her happiness is my happiness. And the happiness of her is the happiness of Allah. So if gathering here brings about the happiness of the Messenger of Allah in having a memorial, shahadat majlis, whatever you want to call it, for his daughter, ultimately it brings about the happiness of Allah. And ultimately the rida and satisfaction and love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about the salvation of the mu'min. So just that is alone is enough of a reason to gather to remember Sayyidah Zahra and to remember her musibah, because she herself and her family have said without any doubt, without any ambiguity, that this is an act that is rewarded in and of itself. Moving on now. Sayyidah Zahra comes to the first Khalifa. She comes up to him after the burial of the Prophet. This is in the earliest texts of Islam, of Islamic history, such as Ibn Sa'ad. And I'm not going to go through all the history lesson with everyone here, but the very, very early texts, towards the end of the Umayyad period, the beginning of the Abbasid period. Very early texts. She comes up to him and she asks for her inheritance. He says that the Prophet allegedly said that the prophets don't leave behind anything. Ma tarakna sadaqa. Now, of course, this issue, this statement of his has many problems. But I'm going to narrate to you what is their perspective, or what is their view of it. He says that surely I give permission to the Ahlul Bayt to eat from this money. So I'm going to take care of you. إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُ آلِ مُحَمَّدْ فِي هَذَا الْمَالِ. So rather than it being yours, something that the Prophet gave to you, I'm going to take it. It's in my hand, and you can take from it as you need, as long as I am in control. وَإِنِّي وَاللَّهِ لَا أُغَيِّرُ شَيْئًا مِّن صَدَقَاتِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. And he says, I swear by God, I'm not changing anything from the sadaqat of Rasulullah, from the public charity left by Rasulullah. But the problem with this, as we'll get to in a bit, Fadaq was not sadaqah, it was fay. Fay is something that is a personal property of the Messenger of Allah that is agreed by all Muslims. It's not sadaqah. But nevertheless, this is how it is presented. And he says, by Allah, I am only doing, or I shall only act upon what the Messenger of Allah did. So he is saying that you are coming here to me, asking me for something. And we all know, we've said it's about more than this. It's about imamat and wilayat. We talked about this for 2 nights. We don't need to go back and repeat those points. He says, look, all I'm telling you is the sunnah of the Prophet. فَأَبَى Abu Bakr, the Khalifa, this is a riwayah, Ibn Sa'ad narrates, and يَدْفَعْ إِلَى فَاطِمَةٍ مِنْهَا شَيْءٍ. So thus he refused to give her a single thing. Shay, nothing, zero. Because she's wrong, according to him. According to him. She's incorrect. She's not following the sunnah. فَلَمْ تَكَلَّمْهُ حَتَّى تُوفِيَ. So she did not speak to him until she died. Ashad ba'da Rasulillah. And there's different riwayat about this, and she lived for 6 months after the Prophet. There's different traditions about the number of months and things like that. And then in another report, in the same texts, he tells her, allegedly, if you insist that this belongs to you, I'm ready to accept it. لأقبلن قولك ولا أصدقنك. That I will accept it and I will believe you. So she said, Ayman told me. Baba, what does Ayman have to do with this? So he turns to her and he says, I'm sorry, you need 2 women. Ayman's not sufficient. And she basically, na'udhu billah, according to what is written in the history of other Muslims, was confused and basically just walked away and was embarrassed because she didn't know what to do. So she's made out to be unconfident, unlearned, and unsure of herself, making very basic primary grade mistakes. Yet somehow she's Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen according to the same individuals. It's almost a case where you have your cake and eat it too. So after her appeals were denied, Bukhari narrates, فَغَضَبَتْ فَاطِمَةَ بِنْتْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ فَحَجَرَتْ أَبَا بَكْرٍ. Bukhari narrates, and I'm reading the riwayat from Sahih al-Bukhari, فَلَمْ تَزِلْ مُهَاجَرَتُهُ حَتَّى تُوَفِّيَتْ. Muhajara is from the ayah of the Quran, with just the same word. إِنَّ قَوْمِي اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. Mahjur means neglect, to not care, to forget, to act like as if it is not important. What is the riwayah from Bukhari? And this is narrated through so many different people. She did not stop neglecting him, ignoring him, denying him. These are all the words of the definition of muhajara, until she died. And then in the same book it says, قال رسول الله في حقها فاطمة بضعة مني ومن أضاع فقد أضاني. And then in the same texts of Bukhari and Muslim, Kitab Fadail al-Sahaba, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Sunan Abi Dawood, Hadith 3150, 3556, on and on. One who pleases her pleases Allah, the one who hurts her hurts Allah. Not hurts Allah, but angers Allah. Okay. Interesting. Now when we go to 3333, is this a Shia issue? Is it Shias picking and choosing what they want only? An argument could be made that Ayat Tathir, which is one of the biggest proofs for her status in Islam, is a Shia fabrication. Shias made it up. Shias overemphasize as usual. Shias put too much emphasis on these things, and they are ghali and extremists, as the others would say. And they're going out of hand, making a mountain out of a molehill, and so on and so forth, and hence they keep all these gatherings and all this bid'ah that they're doing. Okay. Tabari, who's a famous mufassir of Quran, one of the earliest and most famous commentators on the Holy Quran, not a Shia, in the very early period of Islam during the first 3 centuries. He was a contemporary almost to Imam al-Askari, give or take, or slightly later, rather. He cites the verse, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ. We all know the verse, we don't have to go through it again. What does he say here? He says, لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمَ السُّوَّ الْفَحْشَاءِ. So that this Ahlul Bayt, these people, we're not saying who they are purified of any impurity or any indecency, fahsha. Ya Ahl Bayt Muhammad, O the Ahlul Bayt of the Prophet of Muhammad. يُطَهِّرُكُم مِّن دَنَسِ الَّذِي يُكُونَ فِي أَهْلِ الْمَعَاصِي اللَّهِ. That whatever impurities that would be found in the people of sin will not be found in these people. This is Tabari's explanation here. tathira. They're totally, so there's people of guna, and there's the things attributed with the people of ma'asi are not found in these people. It's just tabari, okay? Fine. And I have the references, all the references I've brought me, photocopies of everything, if anybody wants to see. Then he goes on to mention, again, I don't want to go through everything here tonight. Tabari then mentions about 17 ahadith, 17 traditions, okay? One by one, each one about the single ayat of Quran. Tabari, very, very famous mufassir of Quran, of the Quran. No one can deny. Maybe someone could say not all Muslims agree. Fine, nobody is saying that every Muslim has to agree on this point. Nobody is saying that every Muslim has to believe what Shias believe. No, to each is their own. To each is their own path, their manhaj of their path of what leads them to certainty. But the question is, are Shias making this up? Do Shias have a leg to stand on? Do Shias have some point? So out of the 17 traditions that Tabari narrates in his tafsir, Jami' al-Bayan, it's a huge tafsir, about 20 or 30 volumes depending on the edition that you have. One of the earliest and most important comprehensive tafsir of Quran. He cites 17 traditions. Let me narrate one of them to you. With different chains of transmission. So think of that, 17 ahadith with nearly 17 different isnads. 17 different chains, right? Okay. Here he narrates from Abi Sa'id al-Khudri and Salama قالت لما نزلت هذه الآية, when this verse was revealed, إنما يريد الله, دعا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله, the Prophet invited and called upon Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein, فجلل عليهم كساء, he put a blanket on top of them, the kisa of Khaybar. فقال اللهم هؤلاء أهل بيتي, these are my family. اللهم اذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا, and oh Allah, purify them. Oh Allah, purify them. And we already defined, according to Tabari, not Shia, Rafidi, extremists, all this, Ghali. No. Tabari's explanation is that it is a purification of any attributes of ma'asi, ma'siyah, sin, disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or any kind of indecency, any kind of impurity, denas. Salama turns to him and says, Alastu minhum? Am I not from them? Qala anti ila khair. You're not from them, he's saying, but you are good, ya Salama. Salama is a wife of the Prophet? Yes. He then cites 16 other hadith with the same thing except for one, which states that the wives are included, including Aisha. So out of the 17, nearly 15 out of the 17, I have the references with me. 15 out of the 17, Tabari says it's for these people only. No, la Salama, wala Aisha, wala. This is not it. No one's being extreme, putting anyone down here. This is the Tabari, this is history. This is what is written. Nobody's putting, there's no mubalagha and extra mirchi masala here. This is what is written, word for word, I'm reading to you. Now, how is this lady now, who is given such an esteemed rank by Allah, as per their own witnessing, mistaken, unsure of herself, insecure with herself? It doesn't add up. Now, what does Ibn Qutaybah say in Ta'wil Mukhtalif al-Hadith? Ibn Qutaybah is one of the very famous early Abbasid scholars of Hadith from the Abbasid period. He wrote a book called Ta'wil Mukhtalif al-Hadith, where he looks at the different ahadith that seem to contradict each other and he tries to explain them. Okay? Very, 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 very famous scholar from among the early people that would become Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah. Not yet really Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah, but it would become fully Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah. Really at the formative, we call him a pioneer even, earlier than Tabari. We call him a pioneer. Look at what he says, very interesting. First of all, if this was not an issue, why would he have an entire section on Sayyidah Zahra and Abu Bakr? If Shias are just making a mountain out of a molehill crying, Ibn Qutaybah, of whose reputation is beyond dispute, beyond. Go Google him now, Ibn Qutaybah Dinawari. Very famous, jiddan mashhoor. Very famous person. Amma munaza'at Fatima Abu Bakr. He says, as for the dispute of Fatima with Abu Bakr, if this was just an issue of which did not require anything, why would someone, when ink is so precious, paper is so precious, this person's status in the ummah is so great, that he felt the need to write this? Radiallahu anhuma. He says, may Allah be pleased with both of them. I'm reading from the text, being faithful to it. Fi mirath al-Nabi, with regards to the inheritance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. فَلَيْسَ بِمُنْكَرٍ لِأَنَّهَا لَمْ. And he says that this is not a negative thing. لَيْسَ بِمُنْكَرٍ. There's no munkar here. So he starts off, فَلَيْسَ بِمُنْكَرٍ. It's not what you think. Yes, there was an argument, but it's not a big deal. لَيْسَ بِمُنْكَرٍ. If it's not a munkarin, then obviously it's an issue in the Muslim ummah. For someone like this to bring it up, clearly it's an issue. لِأَنَّهَا لَمْ تَعْلَمْ مَا قَالُهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. Because she did not know what the Messenger of Allah said. So now the true face comes out. لَمْ تَعْلَمْ مَا قَالَهُ. This is a reference right here. Go to Ta'wil Mukhtalif al-Hadith of Ibn Qutaybah. وَظَنَّتْ أَنَّهَا تَرِثُهُ كَمَا يَرِثُ الْأَوْلَادَ آبَاءَهُمْ. She thought, she had some conjecture that she would inherit like other children inherit from their fathers. Meaning ظَنَّتْ, meaning she doesn't know. ظَنَّتْ. And she, na'udhu billah, made her mistake and all this argument over nothing because she didn't have the ilm. This is what he's saying. فَلَمَّا أَخْبَرَهَا أَبُو بَكْرَ بِقَوْلِهِ كَفَّتْ. And when Abu Bakr told her, she stayed quiet and accepted. كَفَّتْ. Really? Okay, let's accept for a moment. Fine. But can someone say that Shias don't have a right to talk about it? Clearly there was a munaza'ah, there was an argument. Clearly it was important. We don't have to force anyone to believe anything or insult anybody. Never, abadan. This is not the way of Ahlul Bayt, not the way of ilm and knowledge. This is not. Ibn Qutaybah has a right to write what he writes, and we have a right to write what we write. Why should he and his followers have a monopoly on Islam and the world and Muslimin? As if it is the final word, kalima akhira. It is not a matter of insulting. It is not a matter of being rude. It is not a matter of provoking somebody, but why should we be under their foot? Again, without insulting, without taking names, without being overly provocative. We can sit and read history and agree to disagree. But you have no right to kill us over this if this was an issue that it was throughout Islamic history. Shias are wajib al-qatl because of this? This is nonsense. Complete nonsense. Look, I'm an academic. I'm not here to say that everyone must believe one thing, and if they don't, this and that. No. But you cannot say, someone cannot say that Shias are cooking the whole story up. It's not possible. Secondly, I will raise another question to the mu'mineen. If we go with ayat tathir and the implications of ayat tathir and all of the traditions of the Prophet that are known, I will ask a simple question. Is it justified then to even ask her for a justification when she asks for her haqq that was already in her hand? Why? Because she told him that الَّذِي جَعَلَهُ اللَّنَا وَسَافِيَتُنَا, according to Ibn Sa'ad's Tabaqat, one of the earliest biographies of Sahaba, what does she say? Allah has given it to us. جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَنَا وَسَافِيَتُنَا. This is exact words from Ibn Sa'ad in his Tabaqat. That Allah has given this to us. Allah has put this at our disposal. الَّتِي بِيَدِكَ. Now it is somehow in your hand. When someone claims ownership, there is something known as milkiyya, ownership. The burden is on the person who's trying to take it away to prove that it doesn't belong to them. Not the victim is not the one to bring the proof. This is what she's saying. Look at the balagha. She's saying Allah has given it to us. It already belongs to us, and now it has somehow ended up in your hand. Secondly, the fuqaha of Islam, so that way people don't think Shaykh Vinay is bringing mubalagha and this and that, and he is, just saying things to get people excited. Sharif al-Murtada in Kitab al-Intisar, one of the brother of Sharif al-Razi, Sharif al-Radi in Arabic, Razi in Urdu, of course. Sharif al-Radi's brother, Sharif al-Murtada, was Naqib Talibiyin. He was the head of the Sadat. It's a huge position. Huge. He was the marja of his age. Okay? In Baghdad. Student of Shaykh al-Mufid, right? He is the one that Shaykh Mufid saw the dream. The Sayyidah Zahra is coming to him and leaving with him her two sons, Hassan and Hussein. And when he woke up the next day, it was Sharif al-Radi and Sharif al-Murtada. Alright, so this is the connection to Sayyidah Zahra. So Sharif Murtada is one of those two children, Hassan and Hussein. In the dream, that is, right? Not literally, okay? What does he say here? He says something very interesting in the chapter on judge, on how to behave as a judge. Bab al-Qada. He says something very interesting here. He says that the Shia reject the position of the first Khalifa Abu Bakr regarding his ruling over Fatima by claiming, by her claiming that the Prophet gave it to her. So he rejected this. He says it doesn't belong to you, the Prophet never gave it to you. He rejected this, okay? إِذَا إِدَّعَتْ عَنَّهُ نَحَلَهَا أَبُوهَا. Look at what he says now, very, very interesting, and he has a long fiqhi discussion on this. Long, all the Maraja have discussed this in their books of fiqh, in Dars al-Kharij, so on and so forth. He says, إِذَا كَانَ عَالِمًا بِعِصْمَتِهَا وَطَهَارَتِهَا. If he knew that she was protected by Allah from sin, from making a grand false claim, And she has been purified, as we read from tafsir, from Quran already. وَأَنَّهَا لَا تُدَّعِي or تَدَّعِي إِلَّا حَقًّا, and she would never make such a claim except it was true. فَلَا وَجْهِ لِمُطَالِبَتِهَا بِإِقَامَةِ الْبَيِّنَةِ. He says that then there is no point in asking for further witnesses or evidence. This is a ruling إجماعاً في أحكام الشرعية. This is a ruling in Islamic law. لأن البينة لا وجه لها مع القطع بالصدق. Because there is no need for extra witnessing and all of these things if her truthfulness is certain. بقطع الصدق. So then, صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. He then says, okay, are there any cases like this in the history of Islam? There are many cases in which people would testify against the Prophet and say, oh, he owes me money, he never paid me. Prophet says, I paid him. They lied. So what happened to these people in history at the time of the Prophet? He gives many examples, page after page. This is a long bahth. That's why I said, people who want to enter into these things, these are deep intellectual issues to get into, okay? What happened to these people? They were, at that time, executed for the crime of apostasy. Why? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen says that if we believe, put our Jannah in your hands, our Akhirat in your hands, the Wahi in your hands, that you have brought it to us, Tabligh al-Risala. But over 70 dirhams or 100 dirhams, someone would not believe you? This is an act of apostasy. This is an act of kufr. We leave it at that. Ishara is enough. Salu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, moving on. Has Amir al-Mu'mineen spoken about this issue of fadl? Because some people argue, well, Amir al-Mu'mineen never got involved, he never said anything, he was silent always about it. Wrong. Big wrong. No. Go to Nahj al-Balagha, letter 45. What does Amir al-Mu'mineen say? In his letter to Uthman bin Hunayf al-Ansari, what does he say? For those who know Nahj al-Balagha, you know what I'm about to say. In the letter that he wrote to Uthman bin Hunayf, what does he say? He says, بل كانت في أيدينا فدك من كل ما أذلته السماء. He says, Fadak was in our possession just like the entire world. فشحت عليها نفوس قوم وسخت عنها نفوس قوم الآخرين. And it was stolen from us by greedy people. And a group of these people were weak and indifferent and allowed it to happen. Now when we go to Khutbatul Zahra, which is narrated in Ihtijaj, Balaghat Nisa, Sharh ibn Abil Hadid, Sharh Nahj al-Balagha of Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili, what does she say? أَأَغْلَبُ عَلَى إِرْثِي جَوْرًا وَظُلْمًا. This is so widely narrated. It's available in English and Arabic, all places. Now, people can claim that Shias, that this is not every Muslim believes in this. Fine, not every Muslim has to believe in it. But you cannot claim it is not an important part of Arabic history. The fact that it is found in such famous books of Arabic literature, of Arabic history, you cannot deny outright that no one has a right to believe in it. This is important because it is a vital part of Muslim memory. Now that memory may be disputed, fine. But for those that follow in the path of the Imams, for them, this is their belief, this is their Aqidah. They have chains of transmission, they know where it comes from, and they believe in it. We know Zainab al-Kubra was one of the narrators of this. What does Sayyidah Zahra say? أَأَغْلَبُ عَلَى إِرْثِ جَوْرًا وَظُلْمًا? Have you taken away my irth, what is left to me, through tyranny and oppression? وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيْ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. This is the ayah from Surah Al-Shu'ara, that those who do oppression will know what their end is with Allah. I think this ayah is enough. Who was she speaking to? It's obvious. Now, going forward here. Even Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Hussain Fadlallah, right? Because often it is claimed that, oh, Sayyid Fadlallah didn't believe in this and he didn't believe in that and he rejected everything and only extremist Shias talk about this and that, and Sayyid Fadlallah, you know, he was completely against all of this. Wrong! X. Sorry, I'm being sarcastic because very often people talk about things that they don't have full knowledge about. Sayyid Fadlallah, Fatima, a role model for men and women. One of the most famous and most, I would say, liberal ulama, who was very controversial. As we know, he passed away. Very controversial person. Many people in this room may not accept much of what he has to say. That's fine. He's died. He's with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah's mercy be upon him. Okay. What does he say now? Okay. I will read to you. Just so it's not that, oh, we're being extremist and we're doing this. You know, I think it's important to quote from very big authorities, and even those who are often cited to say you should not talk about Fatima Zahra and this issue. What does he say? He says, the short life of Fatima, which lasted no more than 20 years, according to some historians, was filled with much suffering and grave crises. If we talk about the suffering and hardships in her daily living, we also need to talk about what was worse than that. The calamities and grievances which she suffered after the death of her father. This is Sayyid Fadlullah, the one who allegedly rejects everything, doesn't believe in this and that. This is often people, when they want to discuss these things, they unfortunately use his name a lot about things. Okay. Which in turn was the cause of the painful wounds that followed, one of the worst of which was the murder of the youth of paradise. What is he saying? That the wounds of Sayyidah Zahra is what led to the killing of Hussein ibn Ali. So thus, in order to understand and appreciate the death of Imam Hussein, you have to understand the musibah of Bibi Fatima. As Shias, this is a part of our Aqidah, a part of our identity. Sayyid Fadlallah is saying this, of all people. Again, for those who are his muqalladeen, I'm not insulting him at all. I'm just saying that he's often, like I said, used as a person to say, oh, don't talk about all this and wrong, so on and so forth. Okay. He then says, historians, and he goes on to talk about the attack on her house. I'm going to narrate that in a bit. So he says that he then goes on to say, yes, that there were other events which she suffered, but they have not always been substantiated. So he goes on to say that there's many narrations about how she died. Some of them we have to look at their sanad, and we're not so sure of all the exact detail. This is his opinion. But he says, we do not deny that these events may have taken place. Look at what he says. As Shaykh Muhammad Hussain Kashif al-Khetia has done regarding beating her and slapping her cheek, because denying requires as much proof as accepting. At any rate, what is definite is that the numerous narrations attain the level of mutawatir as a whole. Khalas. Mutawatir. Why? In there I have about 265 narrations. Even Sayyid Fadlallah is saying, look, yes, it can be debated, but when you bring everything together to the table, No one can be accused of being ghali and this and that. It is too much to deny. Why? What do we read in history? That according to Al-Baladhuri, one of the early historians, what happened? A group of people gathered in the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, refusing to give allegiance. The first Khalifa found out, and he demanded that they pledge allegiance. And then the second Khalifa comes to the door, فَجَاءَ وَمَعَهُ فَتِيلًا, and he has a match in his hand or some fire in his hand. Fatima meets him at the door. She asks him, "O the son of so-and-so, are you going to light my house on fire?" He said, "Yes. This is even stronger or more than what your father would have done." Al-Yaqubi, another famous historian, he had Shia leanings, but is an Abbasid historian and very famous and well known. He says that it was brought to the attention of the first Khalifa and the second one that a group of people gathered in the house of Ali, refusing to pledge allegiance. They gathered around the house of Fatima, and then they stormed the house. Hajamu al-dar. Hajamu. What is hajamu? Hajamu means storm, to break in. And they pulled Ali out. Ali began to fight with them. So people who say Ali was not defending Sayyidah Zahra, no, he was fighting. But just like Imam Hussein and others, they don't use that angels and those access that they have. They have to fight as human beings. There were so many people fighting against him, until he was thrown to the ground and his sword was broken. Okay, so that's another thing. If people say, oh well, if this happened, where was Ali? No, Ali was fighting. This is well known. Very, 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 very well reported. Sayyidah Zahra comes out of the house and she begins screaming, yelling at them. At this point, Ali was reminded by the prophets telling him to keep patient, because had he fought at this point, everyone would be gone. In another source, Ali is pulled out of the house. These are all early sources. Ali was pulled out of the house and he was brought towards the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa. Sayyidah Zahra is screaming, Ya Abati, Ya Abati, Ya Rasulullah. So she's coming out and she's screaming, because they've stormed into her house, they've broken into her house, they've pulled Imam Ali out. Imam Ali is now pulled out, and they bring him to him. And he tells the first Khalifa, he says, are you going to kill? He tells them, are you going to kill the brother of the Messenger of Allah, the cousin and the brother of the Messenger of Allah? He says, as for you being the cousin of the Messenger of Allah, that is true. As for you being the brother of the Messenger of Allah, that is not the case. So they even denied that, imagine. Okay, moving on now. As I said, we're going to try to cover everything here. In a letter in which Muawiyah writes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, what does he say in this letter? I won't go through all of the Arabic. If you want the reference, you can come and see me after. Muawiyah writes in a letter to Amir al-Mu'mineen in which he says, do you remember the day when you were dragged like a camel through the streets? Right? Because they wrapped a rope around him and dragged him like a camel. Kama yusaqu al-fahl al-makhshush. Fahl al-makhshush. That you were dragged like a subdued camel. Subdued camel. Muawiyah is bragging about, saying you're talking to me. Do you remember the time of what they did to you? Muawiyah's tongue, of course, his pen was very sharp. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that yes, I was dragged like this. But he says, by Allah, there is no weakness in my iman because of this. There is no weakness. An yakunu madhluman. As long as I'm not zalim. I was madhloom. The madhloom is not weak. You, Muawiyah, in your misunderstanding, in your ignorance, think that this is a weakness of Ali. Ali being madhloom is not a weakness to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because Allah is with the madhloom, not with the zalim. Look at how history would remember. Look at the strategy of Fatima Zahra and Ali. We are here remembering them because they took such a high road. the road of eloquence, the road of speech, the road of logic, the road of reason, the road of justice and equity and fairness, not the road of violence and emotion. This is its lesson that Fatima and Ali alayhim as-salam are teaching us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, in another tradition, it's narrated in Tafsir al-Ayashi that the second Khalifa sent his slave to the door of Ali. He said, bring him out, tell him the Khalifa of Rasulullah is demanding this. He goes to the door, فَرَأَتْهُمْ Fatima. Fatima sees him at the door. فَأَغْلَقَتَ الْبَابِ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ. She shuts the door in his face. وَهِيَ لَا تُشَكْ أَنْ لَا يَدْخُلْ عَلَيْهَا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهَا. She had no doubt that they could not enter without her permission. فَضَرَبَ, the second Khalifa hit the door with his foot. Okay? Now from a Zaydi source, of the Zaydis of Yemen, you know the Houthis, they also have these same narrations, the Houthis. Yahya bin Hussein al-Hadi al-Zaydi al-Yemeni, who died in 298, tells us, لا تدخلوا على بيتي فإني مكشوف الشعر. He puts another line, according to the Zaydi history, that he will not enter my house as long as my hijab is not on. مكشوف الشعر, my hair is showing. Can you imagine? Sayyidatu Nisa al-Alameen. وكان أثره في عدها مثل الدملج. And Khalid ibn Walid, he says, leaped in and he began to hit her with the whip. And the bruises left. This is Yahya Zaydi. This is even the Houthis are narrating this in their books, the Zaydiyah. So no people come say, oh, this is only Ithna Ashari. This is from Zaydi's source as well. And then they dragged Ali out of the house and chained him by his neck. Okay. Now let's go to the Ismailis. What do the Ismaili have to say about this issue? Just so, at least if we're going to be accused of wrongdoing, we all go, the ship goes down together, I guess. Huh? The Ismailis can't get away from this either because they have a lot of literature about this. Early literature. Qadi Nu'man al-Maghribi died in 323 Hijrah in Egypt. You know, the Fatimid Empire ruled Jerusalem, Egypt, part of Iraq, North Africa. It was a huge empire. Huge empire. There is a poem written based on history and hadith, of course, by Qadi Nu'man al-Maghribi. And we also accept many of the hadith of Qadi Nu'man. It's a long discussion and we don't have time to go into all of this. I've sat down today to translate the poem. I will read it out to you now. And the Arabic is here word for word. I won't read the Arabic, but the Arabic is here word for whoever wants to see it after, in case I'm interpolating things. They sat with Imam Ali to see what his next move was regarding them and his command, meaning the people that refused to give bay'ah, right? They went to Imam Ali's house. Then the second Khalifa, Umar, came in a group. Then they saw that obedience was not being given, meaning to the first one, the one that they gave, the one that now claimed to be the Khalifa, obedience was not being given to him. So what happened? Until they arrived at the door of Batul Fatima, and she was furiously rebuking them. Qaliyatun musarima. So she stood there and took a position, rebuking them, yelling at them at the door, not allowing them. Dunihi ta'adhalahum, while rebuking them and not allowing them to do anything. Then the door was broken for them by the first one. Kusira al-bab lahum awwalahum. Then they violated her hijab, and she cried out loud, Iqtahamu hijabaha fa'awalat. They violated, iqtahamu, they destroyed, violated, stamped upon hijabaha wa zahra. And she cried, fa'awalat. Then they charged in, darabu bainahum fa'asqatat, or usqitat, there's different narrations. And then they charged in and she miscarried her baby. So how would someone miscarry the baby? ضربوا بينهم فاسقطت. Then the sound or the cry was heard and Zubayr rushed in and he fell down. His sword was broken. They piled on top of him, and when Ali saw that the situation was out of control, meaning one by one they went to go fight, right? Ali is ready to fight, but he's sending, the lieutenants are fighting, right? Ali now goes to fight. Amidst them, when they were left to realize that their defensive measures were not saving them, they then encircled Ali and Zubayr. فَاِقْتَنَفُوهُمْ, and they put them into a helpless situation until they were brought into a subdued state. I'm translating the whole poem. It took a long time today to do this, line by line. The Arabic poetry is not easy. Honored is the lion, Layth al-Ghab, meaning the lion that is waiting to jump. That's the Layth means a strong lion, the strongest of lions. Honored is the lion such that they were barking like dogs at them. That he's a lion and they were barking like dogs, surrounding the strong lion, that is Ali. He was brought to the son of a jackal. And then they go on to say things I cannot say on the mimbar, words that we won't, you'll have to leave that one. Hard it is upon me, that event which was degrading. The Qadi Noman is saying, he was the Qadi of the Ismailis, right? Woe upon the one in my heart, the pain in my heart. It is set on fire, which is my conviction and ittiqadi. Then what does he say? وَقَتْلَهُمْ فَاطِمَةُ الزَّهْرَاء, and their murder of Fatima أَدْرَمَ حَرَّ النَّارِ فِي أَحْشَائِي. And he says that their murder of Zahra sets my insides on fire, that I feel like every ounce inside me is being squeezed and my soul is on fire when I think of the murder of Zahra. Because it is well attested, he says, listen to this. لأن في مشهور عند الناس بأنها ماتت من نفاسي. Because it is very well known that she died from excessive bleeding due to miscarriage, nifasi. Mashhur in the nas. He said this is well known. And then she ordered that she be buried at night and that her grave be hidden. None shall attend it aside from her cousin and his small group, and she passed in her sorrow. Her Lord already sent his blessings on her, and she was unhappy with the ummah. What does Tabari tell us in his history? At his deathbed, the first Khalifa says, I wish I did not do three things. I wish I had left three things, and I wish I had done three things. He says, as for the three things I wish I had not done, تَرَكْتُهُنَّ وَدَدْتُ أَنِّي لَمْ أَكْشِفْ مَنْزِلْ فَاطِمَةَ عَنْ شَيْءٍ. I wish I never threw open the house of Fatima. This is Tabari narrating. Tabari is narrating this. إِن كَانُوا خَلُقُوهُ عَلَى الْحَرْبِ. Although at his death, he says, they were at fault. They started the war. They should have just accepted what was the situation. But Ali and Fatima refused. Meaning he's saying, so they forced me to teach them a lesson. They forced us into this situation. In كانوا خلقوه على الحرب, such that Khalid Yahya Blankenship, the professor at Temple University, a very famous historian and professor, writes in the footnote of his translation that clearly there is more that meets the eye that Tabari has not included here. There is more that meets the eye here. But yet Shias are ghali. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now what is narrated in our texts from Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam? I'll narrate to you now. Fatima comes out and stands behind the door. She says, أَيُّهَا الضَّالُونَ الْمُكَذِّبُونَ, all the wrong ones. She says, what do you want? She's speaking to the second Khalifa. فَقَالَتْ تُغْيَانَكْ يَا الشَّقِي. This is your oppression. And he turns to her and says, all you are telling us are the lies of women. أَسَاطِيرُ نِسَاء. فَضَرَبَ الْبَابِ بِرِجْلِ. And then he kicked the door upon her. And they dragged Ali out of the house. And then he grabbed the whip and he began to whip her. And Shaykh Tusi tells us, very famous Shaykh Tusi, Shaykh al-Ta'ifa, madhab. فَضَرَبَتْ كَفَّيْهَا بِالسُّوتِ فَأَلَمَهَا. That according to some narrations, even her hands were whipped over and over again until her hands were, so not only her body, but her hands were whipped. فَأَشَاهَا بِالْبَابِ. And she was squeezed and she was screaming, Ya Abata, Ya Rasulullah. Imagine that moment. She is just screaming for her father. Or rather, Sheikh Mehdi al-Mazandarani narrates this. فَصَفِقَتْ صَفِقَ عَلَى خَدَّيْهَا. And then she was smacked upon her face. عَلَى خَدَّيْهَا مِنْ ظَاهِرِ الْخِمَارِ. Ya Shi'atu Zahra. Can we even imagine the musibah of Ahlul Bayt? This is so painful to narrate. As the person said, that just to think of this, the insides are on fire. Our insides are on fire with pain. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In another narration, Imam as-Sadiq tells us, وَتُضْرِبُ وَهِيَ حَامِلٌ. And the Prophet was told that she shall be hit while pregnant, and her house shall be entered upon without permission. ثُمَّ يُمَسُّهَا حَوَانٌ وَذِلٌ. And she will be inflicted with humiliation. ثُمَّ لَا تَجِدُ مَانِعًا. But and as they are coming towards her, she won't have something to block herself. وَتُطْرِهُ مَا فِي بَطْنِهَا. And that which is in her womb will be destroyed from the hit. And there's numerous narrations like this. And when she was laying there bedridden, she gave her final will to Amir al-Mu'mineen, asking him that she be buried at night, that no one come to her funeral. This is not disputed in Islamic history, right? Imam Ali and Asma bint Umays were given the responsibility to tend to her wounds. As death came upon her, Amir al-Mu'mineen carried out her wishes and buried her at night. He said, As-salamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Amir al-Mu'mineen begins sending salam to Rasul Khuda, from me and from your daughter, your beloved one. Ya Rasulullah, my patience is worn. وَدَعَفَ عَنْ سَيِّدَةِ النِّسَاءِ تَجَلَّدِي. That sadness has overcome me ever since I have lost you. I cannot forget the day that I lowered you into your grave after your soul passed away while you laid upon my chest. But today I have returned to you the trust. O Rasulullah, amma huzni fasarmada. O Rasulullah, my sadness is endless. She will soon tell you what happened to her. She will soon tell you what this ummah has done to me. وَعَلَى حَدْمِهَا حَدَمِهَا حَقِّهَا. And as for her rights that have been trampled away. And you shall say, O Allah, you shall judge between us and them. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen, the riwayah says, he says, I would scream and wail in bereavement. Imagine, this is the screaming and the wailing of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, Ya Rasulullah al-Mushtaka fika, Ya Rasulullah. He's all alone. Right? The riwayah says that Amir al-Mu'mineen had the dirt of Fatima Zahra's grave in his hands, and it was falling upon the grave. But the trauma did not end there, as Imam as-Sadiq says, that Amir al-Mu'mineen made 40 decoy graves. And when those other people found out that she was buried at night, they came to Al-Baqi. They now told Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you do not show us where she is buried, we will open every grave and we will take her dead body out of her grave and we will then do her janazah. At that point, Amir al-Mu'mineen turns to them. And the riwayah says that his neck was bulging as if it was going to blow. And the Dhul-Fiqar was in his hand. And he told them, if you turn over a single hajar, a single stone, لَأَسْقِيَنَّ الْأَرْضِ بِدِمَائِكُمْ, I will flood this earth with your blood. This was the level of the musibah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And I want you to imagine one moment here, Mu'mineen, and I'm going to conclude shortly. One moment here where he says, Hiya imra'ati, she is my wife. What right do you have? She is my wife. My wife. And you're not even allowing me to bury her at night. So after her shahadat, after her assault, after all of this, now this is insult to injury. And then we read, brothers and sisters, in the traditions, as I mentioned to you yesterday, that this is the same Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, who on the day of Karbala, who if she was there in Karbala, she would be hitting her cheeks over her son. Think of the rahmah of Sayyidah Zahra. We will end on this note, mu'mineen. We'll end on this note, that there was another Fatima. There was another Fatima to narrate to you tonight. Fatima Sughra. What about Fatima Sughra, mu'mineen? She narrates to us that on the day of Karbala, I was standing by the door of the tent. And as I looked out, I saw my father and his ashab piled on like rocks on top of each other. And I began to think to myself, what will they now do to me? And she says that a soldier and infantrymen began coming towards me. They began rounding us up. They began poking us with their sticks. يَسُوقُ nisa bin Ka'b al-Rumuh, with the end of a spear. And then we began to scream. Then they began to tear my earrings from my face. And we began to scream, وَجَدَّا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَقِلَّةَ نَاصِرًا وَحَسَنًا وَحُسَيْنًا أَمْ مِنْ مُجِيرٍ يُجِيرُنَا. Is there anyone to help us? This is the scream of Fatima Sughra alayhi salam. But now how do I relate to you as to what happened next? She says that my heart began to palpitate. فَطَارَ فُؤَادِي ارْتَعَدَتْ فَرَائِسِي. She says my heart began to palpitate as a horseman ran towards me. I began running and he began running after me. Imagine this. Fatima is running away. She says the blood is on my cheeks. He then hit me with his spear. I fell onto the ground and I woke up and there was blood. Tusilu ala khaddai wa ra'si. There was blood on my face and on my cheeks. My head was melting from the sun. And I turned to my aunt Zainab alayhi salam. And I asked her, is there any cover for my head? Mu'mineen, what does Zainab bint Fatima say? Your aunt is in the same hal, in the same situation. ألا لعنة الله على قوم ظالمين ماتم حسين.
یا حسین سیدہ طاہرہ 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 سیدہ سیدہ طاہرہ سیدہ سیدہ ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے جب قتل ہوئی تھی زہرا جب قتل ہوئی تھی زہرا یہ دن ہے وہی وبیلا ہے ایام عزائے زہرا زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا جب آپ کی ماں پر کوئی جلتا دروازہ گرائے ایام عزائے زہرا کیا ہے یہ سمجھ میں آئے زہرا پہ گرا دروازہ زہرا پہ گرا دروازہ یہ دن ہے وہی وبیلا ہے ایام عزائے زہرا زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا احساس اگر ہو جائے مظلوم تھی کتنی زہرا زہرا کے مصائب سن کر دل غم سے تڑپ جائے گا سب میں کہ پڑھو یہ نوحہ سب میں کہ پڑھو یہ نوحہ یہ دن ہے وہی وبیلا ہے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا ایک بار حسینی بیٹو ایک بار حسینی بیٹو یہ بات ذرا تم سوچو کیا بیتے گی تم پر کوئی جب ماہر تماچے ماں کو زہرا نے تماچا کھایا زہرا نے تماچا کھایا یہ دن ہے وہی وبیلا ہے ایام عزائے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے جب قتل ہوئی تھی زہرا جب قتل ہوئی تھی زہرا یہ دن ہے وہی وبیلا ہے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے کیسی وہ مصیبت تھی جب دربار گئی تھی زہرا دربار میں سب بیٹھے تھے اور صرف کھڑی تھی زہرا حق چھین گیا بی بی کا حق چھین گیا بی بی کا یہ دن ہے وہی وبیلا ہے ایام عزائے زہرا میں عزائے زہرا اہل عزا یہ کیسی زینب پہ قیامت بھی تھی 18 برس میں ماں کے بالوں میں سفیدی دیکھی کیوں کر نہ کرے ہم گھیریا کیوں کر نہ کرے ہم گھیریا یہ دن ہے وہی واویلا ہے ایام عزائے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے اولاد قدر ہوتا ہے جب سامنے ماں زخمی ہو وہ جس کی کمر میں خم ہو اور تھامے عصا چلتی ہو جب حال تھا یہ زہرا کا جب حال تھا یہ زہرا کا یہ دن ہے وہی واویلا ہے ایام عزائے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے ذیشان نبید ایسی تھی محبوب خدا کی بیٹی پہلو تھا شکستہ اس کا اور ٹوٹ چکی تھی پسلی یہ غم نہ کبھی کم ہوگا یہ غم نہ کبھی کم ہوگا یہ دن ہے وہی واویلا ہے ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا ایام عزائے زہرا جب قتل ہوئی تھی زہرا جب قتل ہوئی تھی زہرا یہ دن ہے وہی واویلا ہے ایام عزائے
مومنین اکرام زہرا سے قبل کے اعلان سماعت فرما لیے کل انشاءاللہ نماز مغربین کے بعد جشن ولادت امام جشن امام سجاد یہاں نماز مغربین کے بعد منعقد کیا جائے گا آپ تمام مومنین سے کل یعنی سنڈے کو سر وقت شرکت کی درخواست ہے متوجہ زیارت
السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني السلام الله عبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر عهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين حامل الحسين السلام عليكم فوزر عباس بن أمير المؤمنين السلام عليكم يا أئمة الهدى علي بن حسين محمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى محمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد الحسن بن علي السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 بفدة الزمان السلام عليك يا شريق القرآن السلام عليك مظهر الإيمان السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا من سوى الجان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسع الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته